And we are live, but give me a second because this is a new way we're doing things. Is that? All right, and mandatory disclosure. We may or may not have ownership or other positions in the stocks mentioned on this show. Be aware of conflict of interest. Don't buy stocks based solely off of what you hear from this podcast. We're not experts any more than you are. And always do your own homework and research before buying and investing in stocks. I'm your host, Kong, along with my co-host Gibson. And
Great
now
to be
let's look at
here.
what's in the news. So, have you heard about this yet? Donald Trump has released his tax plans.
Not really. I've heard bits and pieces about it, but ultimately it's just being dumb. But what's the
Yeah,
details there?
yeah. I don't know too much about this yet. Last Monday we had missed this at our last podcast, but I figured we'd cover it today a bit, or at least mention it. Um, Now, it was released right after Jeb Bush had released his tax plans. Um, so, if you want more explanations, in-depth explanations, but with a very, very liberal bias, you can check out the Young Turks, and the links to the videos are right here. So, yeah,
Check it out. It's gonna be funny.
yeah. So the royal Saudi family has also pulled out 70 billion US dollars in the past 6 months to fund its war on Yemen. Any comments on that?
I think that's a good thing, right?
uh,
All right. Well, that being said, let's think about like tax dollars here. Like, does that mean a plus for GDP because somebody's finally spending our US dollars and then we have to give them $70 billion over US products? Is that what that
I don't
translates to?
think so because I mean yeah, they've already bought our weapons from the U.S. But of course usually whenever the U.S. sells it to them it's at a very cheap discount. Unless you're like Taiwan where they mark up the price. Um, Pretty much everyone gets usually a pretty big discount on like old, unwanted American technology. Um,
I don't
and
know, but all those times we have surplus is because we kept selling weaponry.
well, I mean, I think the weapons have already been bought. The main thing is actually using the weapons themselves and carrying out the operations, or is taking up quite a bit of money. And I mean, for 6 months to go through $70 billion. I mean, I don't know if it's to cover what's already been spent, or if it's just for like just in case. Hey, we need to spend more money on this war. It's still a pretty big deal because they're taking money out of other investments. So
That's kind of crazy. I mean, I imagine this is going to exert even more pressure on the oil prices.
yeah, we'll
Pressure
see.
downwards, I think. Just, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a pretty big deal for them to need that money, and if they get desperate for money, then maybe they'll just pump more oil. Or at least they'll be more pro increasing the oil supply, which will drive the prices down.
Maybe we'll have to see. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a possible extension. But
possible.
yeah, but then again, Russia and the Mid East, right? Or Saudi Arabia, that's their concern too. Is it Saudi Arabia? I don't know. I
No, no,
remember,
no, no, no. It's Russia going into Syria.
oh, Syria, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was ultimately a long-term play in increasing the oil prices. Oh, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I
But
mean, like just like when we went into Iraq. I mean, we thought, hey, once we got in there, the we could basically have our corporations get in there and get, look these are, get some special deals here. Apparently, that wasn't the case,
nope.
and oil prices just kept skyrocketing. So.
With regional disability, I mean, instability, then oil prices go up. Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Anyways, now after decades of being featured in Europe, America is finally switching over to using a chip for credit card purchases rather than using the old magnetic swipe, which is supposed to be more secure. According to The Verge, 42% of merchants aren't ready. The protocol known as EMV, or Europay, MasterCard, and Visa. Europay was eventually merged with MasterCard's European division. Um, so yeah, we're supposed to be getting this new thing, and also companies like Square are also, which is supposed to shake up the two major credit card companies and thus the entire credit card industry, are also jumping in on the bandwagon and selling new machines that will read the chips and offer contactless payment features using NFC or near field communications.
Pretty darn cool, Square. Pretty cool.
However,
Aww.
for all the noise of moving to the EMV system for its security reasons as early as 2012, and some have even said before that, vulnerabilities in the system have been revealed. One such issue is a pin reading machine, which is supposed to be safe, but it turns out they can be tampered with.
Darn. But then again, the same can be said for Mac Stripes, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, we definitely know that Mac strips are definitely not safe at this point, but, moving over to a new system to supposedly be safer, yet it's not, kind of like defeats the whole purpose. So then, I mean, like, once we switch to this new system, how far down the road will we have to, switch to another system, I
Very
suppose?
soon. Soon the card's gonna have to take a droplet of your blood every single time you swipe it. Very soon. That's the next iteration.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you gonna, because of this, are you gonna start using cash again?
No. I mean, security has never been too big of a concern for me just because the credit card companies' policies are so beneficial to consumers. They're like, oh, it's fraud, we'll refund your money and we'll investigate.
That is true, but then it's also funny how it's actually better or easier uh, for credit card companies to do something like that. But then, of course, when it comes to debit card fraud, you're just so screwed.
Just don't use your debit cards ever,
Yeah,
ever.
seriously. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
yes. Well, many analysts are saying the drop in oil demand is linked to China's weakening economy and its lower demand for oil. However, the numbers don't agree. Thanks to oil's lower price per barrel, it's actually gone up.
that makes sense.
Yep.
Good news for buying gas. Horrible news for the environment
Yeah, screw
and
you,
global warming.
environment. What have
We're
you ever
kind of
done for us?
come on, people. Think one step further. We need to stop burning those greenhouse gases. God, this heat wave in LA just won't end.
Really? I mean, today was
Oh, it
pretty
was
cool.
cool. It was relatively cool, but I've been locked indoors with a fixed air like temperature.
Oh well,
It's my
there's that.
recent flu. My body can't gauge the temperatures anymore. I have to look at the thermometers. But that's besides the point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, aside from yesterday and today being pretty cool, I mean, tomorrow it's gonna start warming up again, and by this weekend it's gonna get up to like the 99s, hundreds or
Again,
so.
there is no break. Why is
Yep.
there not a break?
Hey, that's why I'm gonna be gone this weekend, and this coming Monday there's gonna be no show. Just to
No.
forewarn our listeners.
Think about your viewers.
Oh, they don't care. And speaking of viewers, the week in review. Let's take a look at that. So last week, the Dow Jones was up slightly. I mean Dow Jones and S&P and Nasdaq and all that up slightly. Um, but let's look at today. Doing pretty good, I would have to say. They were up 304 points. The Dow Jones, that is. Um, S&P 500 was up nearly 36 points, and the Nasdaq was nearly up 73 and a half points. So,
That
um,
is great. Great news for long-term holders, which I currently am.
yeah,
Yep, not losing as much money. Yay.
yeah. How long do you think this is gonna last?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not too sure what's the root cause of it at all. I imagine it's just that the negative sentiment of the market has finally faded away and the panic is subsiding, I
Maybe.
imagine. But I don't know. I'm not sure how long they could last because there's a few factors that could change things. And it's hard to predict something long term because as things change, your prediction has to change to reflect the new inputs.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's happening with Russia? if Russia gonna go all crazy nutso and declare war on the United States or something, that can definitely make this tank go away. Um, the other concern is the the Fed rate hike. Like I think right now it's kind of pushed back, and it like people just stop caring about it for a while. And then there's going to be the government shutdown in the United States that's possible if the Republicans repeat what they did like a few years back. So that's that. I mean, that can all change this graph right now. But for now, I mean, the market sentiment is obviously reflecting the fact that there's more consumer confidence in the market. At least there was a report that there is greater amount of consumer confidence and some amount of job growth.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, but I'm not sure why specifically today, because today, have you noticed the market actually dropped in the morning and then picked up toward the afternoon and at the closing?
But I mean, if you look at it overall, I mean, look at the little drop in the morning. It wasn't that
Well, the day before, it was actually much greater.
true.
The market opened, it dropped significantly, and then it picked up afterwards. So the pre-market trading actually dropped significantly.
True.
But don't know what the root cause of that is. I mean, maybe some super rich dude just accidentally clicked a few buttons, and then in, in a panic, rebought everything.
Yeah, probably. But
It could happen, you know. Yeah, maybe some institutional holder, there's some glitch in their software, and that is definitely a possibility as well.
yeah, it was just interesting how in well, for the past month, really, I mean, you've had a lot of like all or nothing days where it was just like up 200, down 200, up 200, down 200, down 300, up another like 400, you know?
Yep, crazy
Yeah,
times.
crazy times indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot, very, very akin to gambling. I mean, people are like, oh, yeah, it's gonna keep going up, but why? It doesn't keep going down, but why? I don't know. There's a reason for each. So it's basically there's a reason for it to go up, there's a reason for it to go down, and it's gonna flip-flop between the two until eventually something holds over, and then that's what we're gonna stick with. But for now, there's just so many little factors, and there's another concern is that is the global economy really slowing, you know? And I guess maybe perhaps the lack of bad news and stability in the China market is now caused like basically in how and then in a way we kind of link with China and in a way China's linked with us is China stabilizes, we stabilize a bit more, and then China stabilizes some more, and then we both become very stable, and then we're like, oh, okay, panic's over for now. And that might be the effect that we're having right now. I think I did read something about how the China stock markets are now stabilizing thanks to the United States stock market stabilizing as well.
Yeah, we'll see what actually happens.
Who knows? I definitely cannot tell. The
Yeah,
only thing I could tell is that no one can tell.
pretty
Tomorrow, for
much.
all I know, it's going to dip down again. I mean, this is a good time for, straddle buyers, people who buy on just merely changing or volatility alone. But there's no clear long-term hold position or clear long-term sell, like a sell short position right now.
Yeah.
Just because there's like either way, like Russia declares war on the United States, it would have been a good call on a short, but then China basically fixes economic problems and now becomes a global spender, and basically the RMB value now gets added to IMF, and then it climbs up in value, and basically they're forced to become a service economy and buy products. Then the United States economy is going to shoot up like madness, or the world's economy is going to shoot up like madness. So I don't know. There's a lot that can happen in the next few weeks or months that can basically change this graph completely.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Guys
next
feel
topic. Portfolio review. So,
yes.
yeah, this may not be in your portfolio, but it is in mine, at least 2 out of 4. McDonald's and Coca-Cola, those two specifically. Um, on top of those two, Anheuser-Busch and Visa, not in my portfolio, are all major backers of the FIFA, the International Soccer Association. Now, these companies have called for FIFA's temporary president, Sepp Blatter, to step down way before his February 2016 end of term. Last week, he was being questioned in criminal proceedings from the Swiss Attorney General's office last week over payment to the UEFA, European Soccer Association. Well, their chief, Michel Platini, sorry, worth over $2 million US. Now, this is a rare case where companies are making such a statement against, such a political statement against bribery. As of the release of this news on Friday, McDonald's was up 1%, Coca-Cola was up almost 1.5%, Anheuser-Busch was up over 3%, and Visa was only up 0.75%. I didn't check today's numbers, however.
Interestingly, it's a complete tangent, is that I think Coca-Cola is definitely in Buffett's portfolio. I'm not sure McDonald's is as well.
I think McDonald's used to be.
Yeah.
Not
But I
sure.
was yeah, I was just thinking like, well, how many of these companies does Buffett own? But yeah, I mean that's interesting. I'm not sure why the FIFA thing is correlated to these companies, but perhaps maybe people
Well, I
are.
mean, they're major backers, so it's vital for their brands because every time a soccer match comes along, these guys' commercials are going to be playing. So, by sponsoring FIFA, which is now known to be corrupt, they they're afraid that their brand might be associated with that sort of corruption because you're supporting FIFA and their corruption. So it's kind of like, well, what about you guys? So this is a way for them to kind of put some distance against that.
I see. So you think the move upwards is a reflection of, just the removal of the negative stigma associated with the FIFA corruption?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It was also interesting is that Visa didn't really move at all. Perhaps there's a lot of McDonald's and Coca-Cola and beer commercial, but no Visa commercials.
Yeah, there isn't really a lot of Visa commercials, to be honest. I mean,
Oh, then maybe that
they
makes
are a
sense
major
then.
backer, but you don't see a lot of their commercials, I
Well,
suppose.
I guess they're wasting their funding money.
Probably.
But
Well,
then again, does Visa
hmm,
really need additional advertisement? They're like, we're just pretty much on top of the game, period. So we don't need any more advertising. Advertising for people who are nobodies. We're such a big somebody, we don't even need it.
right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows indeed. Now let's look at investing strategies. We haven't done this in a couple episodes, honestly. It's this is actually the main focus of this podcast is to figure out some of the different strategies or different sorts of investments that are out there that you may want to consider. So this week, what I've been looking at, or well, I've been looking at it for a couple weeks now. Penny stocks.
Nice.
These are usually stocks that are around $5 or less. They're usually a small company looking for investment on an open market, and your money. Whoa, shouldn't have done that. But yeah, your money is literally life and death to them. Note, however, these are not stocks of formerly large companies that have seen better days. Some of the major companies with global footprints hit this price range during the Great Recession, and you know, while it was scary because we were almost seeing the economy fall off the cliff, literally, you know, we still would not classify these stocks as penny stocks. From what I've seen, most penny stock investors rely more on chart analysis as opposed to fundamental analysis. Normally, for other companies, chart analysis would mean looking at a chart as an overall indication of how healthy a company is. For penny stocks, it's more about how much hope the company has for itself. Now, however, the numbers are easily manipulated by all sorts of people, which is why it's so risky. A fundamental analysis can sometimes be used just to simply check whether or not the company is actually making money and to see if some of the hype um, or the rise in prices are justified. So, what's your take on penny stocks?
I think you made a wonderful recap of exactly what penny stocks and penny stock investing involves. So yeah, it's pretty much, a lot of penny stocks, and you look at a lot of companies and a lot of players in penny stocks. What they do is they look at the chart and the stock's volatility, and they look for gaps. They're like, oh, it's going to drop 75%, and then we'll buy in, or it'll rise a certain point, and we'll like let go, and so on, so on. They just look for patterns, and the patterns are great, but I would see the patterns more of a reflection of the psychology behind it, possibly. I personally like fundamentals, and fundamentals like I would say fundamentals are basically the financial reports, the asset, the balance sheets, and income statement, and so on. In addition to any type of like news that fundamentally change the company for what it is, I believe those are better predictors and indicators of how like how a company would function or how the stock prices might behave just because they make more sense to me. Of course, to other people, they believe that, the charts and the math would tell you everything. But if you were to follow the Black-Scholes story, basically the inventors of the Black-Scholes formula that's used to price option prices that takes out the risk involved in it to give you a better pricing for the options, is that they once had a hedge fund and they believed in just using pure mathematics to do the investing, and eventually their company failed. These are two extremely intelligent mathematicians, and they were just looking strictly at the charts and the numbers and the math to do their investing, and eventually the company failed when basically the math became unpredictable. These things are like hard to program in because for math-based computation, you have to have some sort of history. But then, for example, one day, if I were to say, hey, Russia declares war on the United States, there is no history that would indicate that this stock needs to be sold right away. Of course, then again, perhaps in the algorithm, they do say something like, oh, if it drops, start selling it. But then the question is, some algorithms might think, oh, it's a sudden dip, we should buy. There's a few things that I would caution against with trading these strategies, but perhaps it has some merit. These the strategy or the analysis that there's roughly two types, and there's fundamental analysis and then there's technical analysis. And technical analysis uses more graphs, more maps, and more patterns to try to get a prediction of where the stock is going to go. So I believe you did a great job in covering it and don't really have much more to add.
Okay. Well, I mean, the only reason why I'm looking at it is because, first of all, A, it's cheap. So then as far as, being able to profit, you can profit quite a bit if you know what you're doing. But then, of course, like I said, it is risky. So that is a thing. If you're going to lose, you're going to lose a lot of money. So,
Well, I would say that, it might not be a bad idea to look into it and invest in it. I mean, just because it has small amount of money doesn't mean it's like not investable. But the difference between a NYSE stock and then the Nasdaq stock and whatnot, maybe NYSE. If I were to say credibility wise, I would say NYSE just because of fee and cost to get on New York Stock Exchange is much great. It's the greatest of all the stock exchanges. Then followed by the Nasdaq. Then there's other exchanges, and finally the penny stocks. And penny stocks require the least they have the least requirements to actually join the exchange, over-the-counter exchanges, and basically they have the least amount of accountability as well. So they're not as, for NYSE, they have to follow GAAP, they have to follow the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, they have like a lot of SEC oversight, and then they basically had to hire the big four accounting firms to audit their company and numbers before they say, hey, these are our numbers. And this was introduced by Enron, really. And basically Enron was an organization that did such horrible, like malicious, um, fake accounting numbers that like basically all credibility in the stock market was lost. And as such, it instituted they instituted GAAP in response to that. And GAAP basically ensures that numbers are at least conforming to a standard and as accurate as they can be. Of course, GAAP gets updated pretty quite often. So yeah, that's what it is. So with penny stocks, that's my concern is that hey, does it follow GAAP or does it not? I would definitely look at the annual reports. I look at the company letters and read through it and see if they fall in GAAP and which accounting firm audited it. And another thing is that perhaps as a penny stock company, I would look for any type. If I they might still be a good investment. I would look for any type of association with a much bigger company. For example, like Apple, they might have a company they use to source their chips from, or basically to make their cases and whatnot. So if Apple sales go up, the penny stock's revenue will go up quite predictably. So that might not be a bad thing to know. I mean, how much research is required for it, I don't know, but I did recall seeing a video on this, and basically one of the stocks that the person was mentioning was a stock that Apple basically bought a patent from or something like that. But then again, after reviewing the patent, he found out that the patent was really bad, it was really pointless, and that ultimately Apple was going to disown this company. So the person who was doing the video basically bet on the stock going down, and then basically it did go down predictably, and that's how he made his money. But it's one instance that he made a correct bet. There's probably many other instances that he wouldn't have, made a correct bet and probably not something he would advertise.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's good for today. How long did we go? I don't think we did. We don't think we went too long there, did we?
we're quite efficient.
What is that?
We were quite efficient.
We were. We were indeed. Um, so as far as the different slides and all that, did you see them pop up at all, or did it not move beyond the YouTube playlist?
I actually clicked on your thing to
Oh.
see the slides, but I'm not too sure if that's something I'm supposed to do.
No, it's not supposed to be. Crap. Okay, hold on. Let me stop broadcast.